Hurricane season is upon us, and the question that I ask myself and friends ask me, should you sail on a cruise during hurricane season? How can you prepare for it, and what other precautions should you take if you're thinking about sailing in the Caribbean between June 1st and the end of November? All those questions and more are going to be answered in today's video, but let's start off first by talking about this hurricane season, 2022, and the predictions from NOAA. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration put out their hurricane season outlook. And for 2022, it is a 65% chance of being an above normal hurricane season. Now, what does that mean for all of us who love to go sailing and love the Caribbean cruises? I love those so much. I look forward to going on many, many more. It means that the idea that cruises will be diverted is going to be more realistic. So how can we prepare for this? The reality is there are basically two trains of thought. First, you don't book during hurricane season because you might not be able to really experience your vacation. I don't recommend that train of thought personally. I think that it makes more sense to book the vacation you want and have a backup plan in case you are not able to go for any reason. But the reality, the real reality of how often you get diverted is extremely rare. Although a canceled cruise is relatively rare, experiencing rougher seas during hurricane season is a reality, whether or not there's a storm in the immediate area or not. It's just simply the facts of the Caribbean during this time of year. So if you're a relatively new cruiser, my advice for you is a little bit different. If you're just getting into it for the first time, I actually recommend avoiding hurricane season for that first cruise or two, just so that you have a kind of smoother sailing for that first time. After the first time, the suggestion changes. The only reason I say that is because if it's your first time, you kind of don't want to take those chances with a hurricane. You want to just, let's go and experience it and have fun, and then we'll try other things in the future. That's just my advice. Now, why would you book during hurricane season? Why wouldn't you just avoid the season altogether? Well, if you're like me, you just love cruising so much you can't seem to get away from it and love going between June and through November, right? You don't want to not cruise during that time frame. The second big reason, you save a lot of money if you go during hurricane season. All the cruise lines end up lowering their prices simply because, my guess is, demand is lower during that time because some people would prefer to avoid the hurricanes altogether. Now, I did a bit more research here, and if you're sailing Eastern Caribbean, just from statistics, you're more likely going to be kind of impacted by a hurricane during the beginning of hurricane season. So June, July, a little bit of August. But if you're doing Western Caribbean, it's the entire hurricane season that affects them. Another thought here, is it dangerous to sail in a hurricane? Well, the super simple answer there is yeah. No, don't be sailing in hurricanes. Luckily, the cruise industry doesn't do this. No matter which cruise line you are on, they do not want to take the chance. For them, it's not worth the PR nightmare that would be if they go into a gigantic storm and they have 30-foot swells, or, God forbid, there's some other emergency at sea and they're going to need to call for help. So they want to avoid that at all costs. So instead, the crew are trained, especially the bridge crew, are told and trained to avoid the storms at all costs, right? That means going into a different island sometimes. It also sometimes, unfortunately, does mean canceling those cruises. Again, relatively rare. To give you an example, I was actually on a cruise that was diverted due to a hurricane way back, I think a couple years ago. I had a double dip at Castaway Cay, Disney's private island. The itinerary originally, when we booked the cruise, was not scheduled to be a double dip. Instead, it was scheduled to go further towards the east, which was really, we were looking forward to it. But unfortunately, because there was a hurricane beginning to brew, and they have really good equipment to be able to tell all this, they're in communication with the land-based crew, they're able to know, okay, that we should not go out there right now to that eastern part of the Caribbean. We should stay closer to Florida, maybe go to Castaway Cay twice, and maybe another day or two at sea. And that's what happened to us, and for me, I loved it, loved the whole thing, and really didn't experience that much rocking. There was a little bit back and forth hurricane season, but we had the opportunity to still sail. We were out at sea for the exact number of days we were supposed to be at sea, and had a spectacular time. And we didn't really know the severity of the storm that was just a few hundred miles east of us. Now, if you're wondering about some of the equipment that they have on board, the different cruise lines actually have taken the time to explain a lot of this, not only on websites, but also through some videos, which is really interesting. And NOAA, which again, the government organization, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they fly special planes all the way into hurricanes so they can actually tell exactly what's going on and have accurate predictions as where it's going to go. So we have a general idea of these short-term predictions for weather. Long-term predictions, that's more of a science, and I think many people would say it's anybody's best guess. However, the short-term predictions we're definitely getting much better at. So we know when a storm is coming, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days away, and we can say, all right, we can just start to prepare for this now. Now, if you're looking to book during hurricane season and you're a little bit worried about cancellations, which happens, but it's, again, very unlikely, you can purchase the trip insurance, which will insure your entire trip, and you'll be able to go again and again. Now, if you don't purchase trip insurance, and this is going to vary from cruise to cruise, so please look up those details for your cruise line. Usually they're going to give you some kind of credit if they can't go at all. So do you need the trip insurance? That's a personal decision. Some people say yes, some people say no. So I'm not telling you if you need it or not, but it's an option that's available to you in the event that a storm's brewing and maybe you don't even feel comfortable going. Look at the policy that you're purchasing, make sure the cruise line policy, you've read that one as well to make sure you have a full understanding of what's going to happen in case there's a cancellation or you just don't feel comfortable going and they're still going. Now let's say for a moment you're on a cruise in the Caribbean having a fantastic time and they say we got to cut it short. Again, doesn't happen that often, but let's pretend it does. Having another idea of what you might want to do during that maybe vacation time that you took is a really good idea. So some backup plans. And this may also mean not staying in, as an example, Florida, right? You're not, maybe you're not staying there because there's a really significant hurricane coming through. So you're able to go back home wherever home is, or maybe you live in Florida, and then you can just kind of enjoy more of the vacation there. So have a backup plan, at least in mind, in the event that something does come up. One piece of advice that I really do want to share with you that you can prepare for in advance of your cruise, and this is a huge point that really should be a big takeaway. If you're cruising during hurricane season, you're a little, apprehensive and you don't know what's going to happen, but you're still going to go, you're looking forward to it. And during the cruise, at any point, the port that you are going to go home to, let's pretend it's the last night and they shut down Port Canaveral, just as an example. It doesn't happen, again, that frequently at all. It's very, very rare, but let's pretend. And so they shut down the port, you got to go to a different port. And let's pretend it was Miami, right? You have to go to a different port and there's no other ones in Florida that are open, so they take you to an overseas port. Let's say they go to Cozumel, for example, or somewhere in the Bahamas, and they say, okay, you gotta fly out of here. Having your passport in that specific situation is going to be immensely helpful. It's true that you can just sail with just your birth certificate and ID on many of these Caribbean cruises. Again, check with the cruise line, they have all that information. But having your passport in that specific instance, right in that moment, is going to save you a ton of time and aggravation. You're going to be so happy that you have it. So even if you don't need it, bringing that passport with you is going to give you that extra peace of mind because the cruise line's not going to let anything bad happen. They're going to say, all right, we can't go here because of safety, so let's go somewhere else so that we can get you home. Having that passport saves you a lot of hassle there. In addition, if you're going during hurricane season, a couple of other things to remember. Bring extra medication, whatever is required for you and your family, just in the event a couple extra days are needed where maybe sometimes they sail around the ocean, give you a couple extra days at sea, and then they go back to port. It definitely has happened before. Again, not common. In addition, maybe that phone or laptop, some other way to connect with friends or family, because sometimes in these situations, not always, they'll activate the internet for everyone so that you're able to connect with friends and family. Just let them know that you're doing okay. Overall, I still do recommend sailing during hurricane season. Is it the absolute best time to sail? It depends on who you ask. For me personally, I really do like the weather during like September, even though technically that's smack dab in the middle of hurricane season. It's not too hot, right? It's really nice. It's fantastic, but you do take a chance. So is it worth it for you? Only you can answer that question, but for me, it is worth it. I had the opportunity to go and experience it throughout the year and have a ton of fun. Those are my thoughts about sailing during hurricane season and a couple of very important tips. If you have sailed during hurricane season, or even if you haven't, let us know in the comments below. If you did you thought it was fine, saved a lot of money, or if you haven't before, are you starting to think about it now? Let me know in the comments, and any other tips you have for our friends who are thinking about it that weren't listed in this video, let us know in the comments as well. I'd love to hear from you. A special thanks to our patrons for making all of our videos possible, and until next time, have a magical day and see you real soon.